Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The title of my amendment is the No Tax Loopholes for Ivy League Elites Amendment. I can tell you, American people in particular hate hypocrisy, misrepresentation, and also the activities of Washington, D.C., where folks take action based upon their political donors and who's paying their campaign coffers. I can tell you, when we looked at this bill and we saw that you had put in on the majority side this endowment tax loophole for Ivy League elites, these are for endowments with over tens of billions of dollars that we as the Republican majority put into our tax cut bill to make sure that they weren't being abused, that those endowment dollars were not being manipulated in a way that would be devastating to those that are going to school, or for those that were manipulating that endowment dollars for their own personal gain. I can tell you, when I saw this particular provision, I was quite aghast because not only do you change policy that will actually drive the college costs up with this provision, you are doing it when we looked at the public record. $8.8 million was donated to members on the other side of the aisle in their campaign activities. This is a $2.5 billion tax provision that goes to the wealthiest of wealthiest, especially in the Ivy League arena. I guess a $2.5 billion benefit is worth the $8.8 million that were contributed to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Because what does this provision do? It essentially will incentivize that college costs go up. Because what you have done, let me just use a simple provision, a simple utilization of this provision. So the university today charges tuition of $50,000 and offers $10,000 per student in financial aid. Under your proposal, my Democratic colleagues, the schools can simply raise tuition to $60,000 and increase the financial aid to $20,000. In essence, the school still gets the same net amount of tuition per student and yet avoids that $2.5 billion tax. What does that do to tuition costs? It drives tuition costs up. That is not smart policy. That is an intended outcome, I believe, to continue this cycle of college debt and increasing college costs in America, where you guys and we are incentivizing cost going up. There's nothing in this proposal that is going to lower college costs. You cover this proposal by saying you're encouraging financial aid to students. But as I just articulated in that simple example, you are actually not doing that. You are not providing financial aid that's a net benefit to students because you're increasing their tuition costs. And you're doing it because elitists who have tens to $40 billion of endowment dollars in these special accounts, that the American people have seen this story. They know what's going on. They know who's profiting from those dollars. They know who has unrelated business income in their operations. And they know that it's in their incentive for this tax to be repealed. So $8.8 million of investment, and I've heard investment all day long, $8.8 million worth of investment in this political arena sure makes sense when you get a $2.5 billion benefit from the policy that is being proposed. So rather than creating tax loopholes and shelters for the elitists who don't need this benefit, why don't we actually do something that would get to the heart of the issue and lower college costs and not incentivize the increase like you indicated here? So I urge the adoption of my amendment, and I yield back.
Order. And the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Boyle, is recognized to speak on the amendment.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, this is, I mentioned earlier how historic this is. This is now personally historic for me because for the first time in my life, I've been called an elitist. And I would like to thank the gentleman on the other side. I've never been considered that way before. Second, and more seriously, as I mentioned as a first-generation student myself, I am well aware that the universities that I attended used a percentage of their endowments in order to provide the significant student aid I needed in order to attend those universities. If the gentleman is concerned that the cost of college is too high in this country, I completely agree with him. The fact that we have $1.8 trillion of student debt right now is a disaster, not only for the individuals in repayment, which happens to include myself, but I think on our economy. Keep in mind, however, the Republican endowment tax of 4 years ago did nothing, literally not one dime, to reduce the cost of a higher education. The 1.4% tax simply went to the government with absolutely no provision whatsoever incentivizing or requiring these universities to spend a certain percentage of their endowment on student aid. What is in this Democratic proposal does that. It doesn't eliminate the endowment tax, but it reforms it. It rewards those colleges and universities and gives them a credit based on the percentage of their endowment that they are using in order to invest in their students in terms of student aid. It is taking what frankly was a bad and clumsy Republican idea 4 years ago and reforming it to help incent those universities to do the right thing and reward those universities that are doing the right thing. So with that, I urge a no vote on the gentleman's amendment, and I extend my hand to anyone on the other side who sincerely wants to tackle this problem of the cost of college education in this country. With that, I yield back to the chairman.